So in this week's video, for what I watched and what I recommend, I'll just say that there's a lot of Marvel stuff, so be forewarned about that. That's been taking up a lot of my free time lately because Daredevil Born Again starts in just over a month, so I've been rewatching all the Defenders stuff to get ready for that. And it's been really fun because a lot of the Defender shows are the seasons I haven't seen since they first came out, besides Daredevil. Currently I'm going through Luke Cage Season 1, but I'm going to hold off talking about Luke Cage till next week or the next video of these or whatever, because I'm only halfway through it, so I think it'd be better to kind of talk about the whole season at once. But first off, I'm going to talk about the weekly shows that aren't rewatches. Also, remember to subscribe if you're not already, and maybe like the video if you're enjoying it. So first off is Severance Season 2 Episode 3. Haven't seen Episode 4 yet, but Episode 3 was fantastic. Easily the best episode of the season. We got some revelations and some serious progress that was made on some huge storylines. The episode ended with a huge thing happening, and I can't wait to get to this week's episode and see how they're dealing with the giant bombshell that was sort of dropped and what's going to be the direction for the rest of the season. Because no spoilers, but the plot choice was big enough that it's the kind of thing you'd expect a show to do in its finale of a season, not in episode 3. So it's kind of crazy that we're not even halfway through the season yet and they're already doing huge revelations and huge things like this. Anyway, as expected, Severance Season 2 is still recommended. Next up is another Apple show, and that's Mythic, a workplace comedy that is set inside the developer of a video game studio, kind of riffing on places like Ubisoft. I actually think Ubisoft is partly involved in this show. Like, I think that I don't know, they're help producing it or they're help funding it or something like that, because the show was first announced at E3 from Ubisoft's part of the press conferences. So I think that they're like involved in it, and it makes sense with a lot of the stuff. That the show has like interludes sometimes where you'll see scenes from video games, and sometimes that's a Ubisoft game that they're showing. But season 4 is currently airing, and I watched the first 3 episodes of it. The show is spearheaded by It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia's Rob McElhenney, and I feel like all the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia people kind of have one show cooking while It's Always Sunny is off the air. But so far the season has been solid. It's funny for sure. I've never really been in love with this show, to be honest. What attracted me to it was kind of the idea of it being set in a video game workplace, because that's something I'm kind of interested in a little bit, and I think that was a really cool idea to set a comedy in there. And the first 3 seasons all had one episode each that would be standalone and flashback to something from someone's past or show some new, completely different characters with some actors you weren't expecting to see. And each of these episodes ended up being easily the best episodes of each of the seasons. And I'm really hoping that season 4 has one of those episodes this season, because every time they have one of those episodes, it ends up being one of my favorite episodes of TV of the year that the season came out. Like, they're always really good. Now, some places were reporting that season 4 is the final season, but it's not actually been confirmed yet, so I'm not sure if this is the final season or if it's just going to get renewed after the season ends or whatever. I feel like season 4, though, for a current streaming workplace comedy, makes sense to be sort of the final season or to start wrapping things up, so we'll see. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1 is the current airing Marvel Disney Plus show and the third show from Marvel Studios' new animation division. 5 episodes have released so far, with 3 episodes releasing weekly until the final week, where there'll be 2 episodes. So I think the show is going to have wrapped up by the end of February. I think like a week and a half or so before Daredevil Born Again starts is when Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man will have wrapped up. To be honest, I was pretty whatever going into this show at first. They announced the show like 3 years ago, kept saying it was coming soon, kept teasing it, and then we get like radio silence for months and hear nothing. Then it was planned to come out in mid-2024, then pushed to late 2024, and then it ultimately ended up releasing in January 2025. But all the things they showed didn't really seem like my kind of thing. The animation style wasn't really something I was super into. The trailers and images that they showed didn't hype me up much. And then there was some controversy with the main actor for Spider-Man as well, the main voice actor. And on the week that the show was supposed to release, then that kind of threw a lot of things out of a loop. I don't know. In general, I just felt kind of uninvested in what they were showing and what the show planned to be. But the show has completely surprised me based off of these first 5 episodes. Like, I'm genuinely absolutely loving it. And I've not been a huge watcher of Marvel animation in the past, but I think this is one of the more enjoyable Marvel animated projects I've seen. I'm really into the animation style now, and it has this sort of motion comic feel that really works the more you see of the show. The story decisions and choices are great, with turning characters who you think you know on their head and revealing certain people aren't who you think they are, combining a comic book style version of Spidey with an MCU style world to create this awesome mesh that really works well and way better than you'd expect. The music is also fantastic. The opening intro is really catchy, and I also love the instrumental main theme that plays at the end credits. I don't know, I do recommend Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. If this is the kind of quality that Marvel Animation is going to be putting out on a regular basis, I'm kind of here for it. That said, I do still need to watch X-Men 97, which I hear is like out of this world fantastic. All my last new things that I'm talking about from TV shows are superhero animated shows, but it's all from different franchises, which is kind of fun that we've got 3 from different places all airing at once. But DC's Harley Quinn season 5 started a few weeks ago, and episode 4 released this week. Now look, I've never been the biggest fan of Harley Quinn as a show. I think it's always been light 20-minute fun. It's a comedy, sure, but a lot of the time it doesn't exactly really hit for me. I wish it did, but I just kind of find it sometimes sort of whatever, just a little bit of a background show, which is not always what you want. That said, I do personally think that the show has been getting a little worse and a little more stale as the show has gone on every season. Kind of a little like it's past its prime in a way. I feel like season 1 was legitimately a cool new thing, and now that we're on season 5, I'm sort of just watching out of obligation and just because it's a DC show. I'm trying to keep up with DC. Now, I'm not sure if this season 5 is the final season or if they're continuing or if Gunn is cleaning up this part of DC as well as we head into his new DCU, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that this is the final season and that they're not going to be going forward. I'm not sure what's happening with like Kite Man, which is the Harley Quinn spin-off, because we got season 1 of that last year and we haven't really heard anything else about that, so we'll see. The final new show is Invincible, and season 3 started this week with a 3-episode drop. Really welcome to have just under a year of a break between seasons 2 and 3, because season 2 wrapped up around now last year, but the break between seasons 1 and 2 were brutal. And then season 2 had a 4-episode drop in like November 2023, and then another 4 episodes in February to March 2024. So they even had a huge break there in the middle of the season, which didn't help either. But season 3 is going to be just airing. They dropped 3 episodes this week. It's going to be weekly from now on until the season ends, which is really, really, really good. Like, that's kind of what they need to do, because I do feel like the break maybe dampened a bit of the excitement and destroyed a little bit of the hype for the show for a while. Now, I thought episode 1 of season 3 was fine, nothing too special, but episodes 2 and 3 were great, and they were definitely the kind of quality I think that we want to see from this show going forward, because Invincible is at its best, in my opinion, when it's being serious, a little badass, and showing you why this is not your traditional like superhero show, showing why this is different than your DC or Marvel animated shows. Like when Invincible is telling you why it's different, that's when the show is really able to show you its full potential, and when it's good, it's some of the best TV of the year easily. So I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out. It's going to be weekly drops on Amazon Prime every Thursday from now on. But yeah, I recommend Invincible season 3 for sure. Next up, I have 2 rewatches. The first is Jessica Jones season 1, the second season to release from the Marvel Netflix shows, and it released in November of 2015. And it introduced us to Christian Ritter as Jessica Jones, Mike Coulter as Luke Cage, and David Tennant as Kilgrave. Now look, to me, this is one of the most underrated Marvel seasons of all time. Like, not the show as a whole, just season 1. And I know most people who've seen this season sing nothing but its praises, but I do think that not enough Marvel fans have actually watched Jessica Jones season 1. It feels like, in general, this show and the rest of the Defenders shows weren't nearly as watched as Daredevil was. But Jessica Jones season 1 is a borderline masterpiece in my opinion. Christian Ritter just is the character. Like, that's the best way to describe her. She's up there with some of the best comic book castings of all time. And the show is mesmerizing because the focus on Jessica being a private investigator means the show gets to take a very artistic approach to its visuals and its editing, where we have voiceovers of Jessica describing her everyday life, the music taking a very noir style cue that sounds like it's from the 60s or 70s. Like, it would have been so easy for them to just pretty much do the exact same format as Daredevil, just replace the characters of Matt and his supporting cast with Jessica and her supporting cast. But the show understands that it needs to be different and set itself apart, and that's exactly what it does. It's one of the most unique things Marvel's ever made. And Tennant as Kilgrave is potentially the scariest Marvel villain in history. Like, he's terrifying, he's chilling, he's despicable. You understand why everyone in this show shivers at the sound of his voice, or shivers at the thought of him, or the sound of his name. Like, you feel like you're there with them when they're clawing at the walls, trying to do everything they can to stop him. Like, no other Marvel villain manages to live up to that, in my opinion. Like, when people are going, oh, Thanos is the best MCU villain, or Loki is the best MCU villain, I'm like, people who say that haven't seen Jessica Jones, because that is Jessica Jones shows why that's not true. But yeah, I recommend Jessica Jones season 1. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go back and watch it. And the other Marvel Netflix season that I got through this week was Daredevil season 2, which released in March of 2016. Now, Daredevil season 2 has always been critically a little more scrutinized than seasons 1 or 3 were. You always hear that people aren't crazy about the Hand and the Elektra stuff sort of taking over as the central focus after the first 4 episodes focus on the Punisher, but I really like that, to be honest. I think season 1 and season 2 are practically on the same levels in terms of quality, but I'd almost give the edge to season 2 just because of how much I enjoy John Bernthal's The Punisher and how much I enjoy Elodie Young's Elektra. I think they're both really good castings and really great characters that just add so much to the show that season 1 was already great, but bringing those two in just puts it up a little bit higher than it already was. Like, don't get me wrong, season 1 is amazing, and the focus on Fisk throughout season 1 is fantastic, but I do like season 2 sort of being split up into two major arcs where both collide or come in and out of each other throughout the season. And I think it keeps your attention a bit more because both storylines are so vastly different that you don't really get the feeling that the entire season is the same. So you're never really getting bored either. You're always kind of with the show and trying to catch up to the show. It sort of feels like a comic book in a lot of ways as well, more so than seasons 1 and 3 do. And not having everything focused on Fisk, I think, gives each character more to do because some of them, like Karen, are more integral to like the Frank storyline than the Hans storyline. So it makes her character feel a little more important and vital to the season than she did in season 1. But I also recommend Daredevil season 2. I think it's fantastic TV. Still some of the best comic book TV we've ever gotten. Anyway, that's kind of the gist of everything I watched this week. I did rewatch both Captain America 1 and Thor 1 because over on the Pipeline Podcast, Darren is going through the MCU films in a rewatch, and he had me on to talk about those two. So if you want to hear my thoughts on them, go check that out. But didn't watch any other movies, and that's pretty much all the shows I watched. Over the next week, I'm hoping to finish up Luke Cage and also be rewatching some of the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai stuff in preparation for the final episodes coming out next week. So I'll be reviewing that and talking about that on the channel as well, maybe doing some Cobra Kai rankings, which sounds really fun. Anyway, what did you watch this week? And make sure to subscribe, like, share, all that sort of stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day.